I recently saw an email. You send out a subscription newsletter to people's emails, and I saw you wrote something about diabetes and can type 2 diabetes be reversed? And I thought this was very interesting to switch from economics and the end of the world to possibly talking a bit about something that might help our viewers here, because you were on your way to potentially being diabetic in the future. You were told about 20 years ago, according to your the email that you sent out. Can you go into this a bit and how people can look into actually reversing type 2 diabetes?
Yeah, I'd be glad to say what I know about it. I want to start off by saying there's a lot I don't know about that, but I think the best place to start in answering your question is with my history of being interested in this topic. Now, everybody's interested in their health, but usually they're not interested in it until they lose it. You know how that works. I remember when I was a young guy, I thought, gee, there are two kinds of people in the world. There are the sick people and the healthy people. I'm glad I'm one of the healthy people. Too bad about those people over there. I wonder how that happened. Oh, well, it never happened to me because, look, I'm a healthy person, right? I'm one of the lucky ones. And I always thought that, well, if I ever got sick, I'd just go to the doctor. He's the guy with the diploma on the wall, and he'll fix me up. Oh, it's so naive, and that's how I went through the first portion of my life till I was probably about 29, and I came down with a very serious illness, or I thought I did. I was diagnosed as having multiple sclerosis by two neurologists. And I didn't know what that was for sure, but I looked it up and I didn't like what I read. I knew I was at the end of my life already, and I was 29, and I had a wife and 3 kids to support. And I was ready to talk about being depressed. I was pretty depressed. And to make a long story short, we could talk for a long time on that, but it turns out that there was a misdiagnosis, obviously. And what it really was that I'd run myself down. I was working very hard. I had the world on my shoulders. I thought, I've got to save the world, and I was running all over the country. I was giving speeches and driving and smoking and drinking a lot of coffee and probably drinking too much beer and wine at night, giving speeches, then having meetings afterwards and long talk fests into 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and then get up in the morning, get in the car, go to the next town. And I wasn't eating well. I didn't know anything about nutrition. All I knew is if it tasted good, it was good. So looking back on it, what really happened is that I'd run myself down. I'd practically destroyed my neurological system, and I just became paralyzed. And it was kind of a breakdown of my system. Well, here I am. I'm long past that point, and I've learned a lot from that point forward. And where I really got into it, Josh, is when it was about 1972, I think it was, that a good friend of mine who was a medical doctor, an MD in the San Francisco area, called me and asked me to help him write an article. I had no idea why I could help him write an article. I said, what's going on, John? His name was Dr. John Richardson, and he had a great practice there in the San Francisco area. But he was a general practitioner, but a specialist with eye, ear, nose, and throat. But he started to treat some cancer patients in that area, and he started using a substance that had been recommended to him by his office manager. And he checked it out. It came from nature. Was not approved by the FDA. They never heard of it, never looked at it, not approved. So he started to use it. He used it first on his dog who had terminal cancer. The dog recovered, to everyone's surprise. Then his head nurse came in and said, John, my husband has terminal cancer. There's nothing more we can do for him. Would you be okay if we tried this stuff on my husband? And he recovered. And so John got very interested at that point, and he began very cautiously treating his terminal cancer patients with this unapproved substance. And he started to save lives like never before. The survival rate went from, very, very poor, like 3%, up to about 70%. And so it didn't take long before patients were coming to his clinic from all over the world because the word got out. And that's when the medical establishment came in and said, Dr. Richardson, you've got to stop using this substance or we're going to take your license. You're using an unapproved medical substance, and that's illegal. And so John wanted me to write an article so he could have it published in the local newspaper or magazine to show why he was using it, how he thought it worked, what great benefit it had, so he could get the medical establishment off of his back, so he could continue to save lives. Mm-hmm. So I said, oh, well, sure, I'd be happy to do that. So I didn't know what I was getting into. You talk about a babe in the woods. I had no idea how much voltage was in that wire that I was going to grab hold of, this cancer industry wire. So I spent about 2 years in pretty intensive research. I thought it would take me 2 weeks or 3 weeks, but I spent 2 years. We produced a documentary film, and then I wrote a book on it called World Without Cancer, the story of vitamin B17. And that, Josh, thrust me into this world of natural medicine. For the first time, I took an interest in how the body works and what causes diseases. And I came out at the other side of that having, I think it was better than going to medical school, because the doctors I had been working with in that time and research period, many of whom had their own practices, went through medical school, and they were now using this substance called Laetrile, or amygdalin is another name for it. And every one of them said, they envied me. They said, I envy you, they said. And I said, why would you envy me? He said, well, because you didn't have to unlearn anything. So we went through medical school. We had to unlearn what we'd been taught about disease. And of course, that was an amazing thing to me. But it emphasizes the fact that we have a problem. I mean, everywhere you look, you find problems in society and in our lives, in important areas of our lives. Mm-hmm. That's why the whole red pill Expo idea is so important. Health, politics, wars, everywhere you look. Now we get to this thing called diabetes and cancer. So I wrote the book on cancer, and since then I cannot tell you how many, probably 1,000 people by now have written me letters thanking me for writing the book, because they said, because of your book and the information I gathered from these doctors and researchers and put in the book. It was nothing that I did. I was just the guy that brought it together and tried to explain it.
I know a few people myself personally, all the way in Canada and other cities I've been to, that read that book and very, very much benefited from it.
Yeah, I just got a letter today as my email that came in today. It was made me feel good, puts a big smile on my face. But anyway, so lives have been saved because of it. And it's only, and out of that, here I'm coming finally to your question. I have gained a great respect for nature, and I'm very skeptical about test tube medicine. I know that test tube medicine, for the most part, what the researchers are trying to do is they found an herb or something, a vitamin in nature and found in food, and they found that it's very effective in the treatment of an illness. But you can't patent an herb. You can't patent vitamin B12, for example. So what you have to do is find a way to imitate it in the test tube and make a man-made concoction to imitate the real thing in nature. And now you can patent that because you made it. And if it happens to work as the original did, all the better. But usually, here's the catch, usually, in fact, almost always, what happens is the imitation brings side effects with it. So that it may actually do almost as good as the real thing, or the original in nature, but it also carries this baggage in of side effects, things that'll kill you. You solve one problem and create two more. So then you take two more drugs to solve those problems, and each of those create two more. So now you got 4 problems. And then this is why people wind up at my age, when they open up their medicine cabinet and all the bottles start falling out. They've got meds all across on the shelves. I don't take any of that stuff. And I'm bragging. Maybe I'm lucky. I'm sure I'm lucky. But the point is, it's a mindset. I discovered then that the best way to maintain health is to let the body do what it was designed to do. And that means give it its micronutrients and try and keep toxic things out of it. Give it a chance to do the body is its own healer if you just understand and let it do its thing. So now we come to diabetes and this substance that, before I get that, in the field of cancer, what we found, what the researchers found is that there is a substance in nature. It's found ubiquitously in nature, 1,400 edible plants. The trouble is, it's bitter to the taste. It's what you taste when you chew an apple seed. It's what you taste when you chew an apricot seed, very bitter. And so there's a story there. But anyway, I found out that all across these metabolic illnesses, in other words, they're not contagious. They're just like a degenerative disease or something the body has, it just stops working, not because the bug attacked it, but it's missing something. And diabetes and cancer that are perfect examples. Pernicious anemia, all these. Vitamin C solves scurvy. Scurvy is one of these diseases. And the solution is always found in nature, like scurvy. It's vitamin C, guys. You don't have to have a vaccine to prevent you from having scurvy. You just eat some limes or lemons or oranges or something like that. Okay, so now we're back to the diabetes thing finally. So about, I guess it was 12 years ago, thereabouts, I had high blood pressure. I think I didn't want to take my blood pressure because I didn't like it, what I was reading, but I think it was ranging around 160, 165, sometimes 170, over God only knows, maybe 95 to 110. I don't know. It was high. Every time I went to the doctor's office, they'd say, oh, you've got high blood pressure, and we recommend you take this medication out of a test tube. And I'm saying, no, I don't want medication out of a test tube, thank you, because I knew that these drugs that they like to prescribe, these statins, they affect your brain. I mean, you'll forget who you are. They mess up your metabolic system. You'll probably die of something else. May not have high blood pressure, but you'll have 2 or 3 other things.
Complete domino effect that leads to 50 other prescriptions as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't want that. Anyway, John Hewlett, who had a product for me, he said, I'd like to give you some of this if you'd like to try it. He says I think it'll reduce your blood pressure. All right, I'm willing to try anything. And I said, it's not out of a test tube, is it? He said, no, it's right from nature. It's a very unique blend of primarily fruits and vegetables. They're highly refined and very specially processed, so you don't destroy the enzymes that are in them, not only the vitamins, the minerals, but the enzymes have to be alive and all of that. And I said, okay, I'll give it a try. Well, I couldn't believe it. A couple of weeks, my blood pressure was coming down, down, down. And after about 3 weeks, or maybe 4 at the most, I had the blood pressure of a young man again. I still do. I just took it yesterday, put the paper away, but it was 117 over 94, I think.
Wow. That's quite incredible. I mean, it makes me feel good to know that you are going around smoking and drinking and all sorts of stuff and speaking and traveling around in your 20s. And, I've quit smoking, but I'm definitely no sign of good health at my age. And I've often worried, that's going to that probably dramatically cut off years from my life. And you are a very healthy person at your age, and you are active and passionate about things, and your brain seems 100% there, and it's something that a lot of people even
I wouldn't count on that, but
well, I mean, as far as that goes, I mean, you see a lot of people in their 50s that have completely lost it. And I mean, it goes to show, the difference between what we're told by mainstream health officials, which isn't always wrong, but it's often very misleading. When you see people in their 50s that listen to that and their health is absolutely terrible, and then you see people like yourself that doesn't listen to that and does what you can to ensure as natural of a healthy life as possible. And I mean, it goes to show it's right there in front of all of us. Why why have people existed for so long throughout, all these years? People in the Himalayas and the people in Nepal that are 120 years old and 115 years old, and they're living, in the middle of nature. Their biggest, concern is getting attacked by a wild animal, and they're not on a bunch of prescriptions. Yet all the people that you see on all these prescriptions have lost their mind. They're addicted. They die at the age of 60, 70 of all these heart problems, strokes, you name it. So I think that really is an obvious, discernible point to make, is that obviously you have to be responsible with it, like with anything else in life. But these people that are dependent, so heavily dependent on these prescription pills, these companies that push these prescription pills and their doctors, it's like being addicted to or being dependent on a drug dealer in a lot of cases. So just finishing it off, where can people find more information about diabetes and how they can help themselves kind of wean themselves off of all these pills?
Well, yes. Just to tie that together, this substance that I was talking about is called Cardio Miracle. Is what I took for my blood pressure, but it has effect on so many other things. And that's the same product that had a profound effect for people with diabetes too, type 2 diabetes. And it seems strange. Well, how can one substance do so many things? It's almost like snake oil, it's good for everything. Yeah. Well, it is good for everything because the way it works, according to my understanding at least, is that it's a precursor. It's an arginine. It's a protein, and it's a precursor for the body's own production of nitric oxide, which is a gas. It's produced right inside the arteries, in the artery walls. And nitric oxide, if you look it up on the internet, there's been a lot, thousands of research papers on nitric oxide. And it's just every paper you read, it's, oh, wow, this stuff really does this, it does that, it does this, it's wonderful. And, but it's produced in the body. You don't, take a mask and breathe nitric oxide. And don't confuse it with let's see, there's another one that sounds just like it, but it's toxic. No, this is nitric oxide produced inside the body. I forgot. Anyway, yeah. You can take nitric oxide to the bank. That's the correct name. But the other one, it eludes me for the moment. So what this gas does is it, among other things, it causes the vessels of the blood to soften, become flexible, which is very helpful under stress. And it's of course what happens. The other opposite happens when you get old, because the arteries tend to get stiff. So when you go up a flight of stairs, the heart starts to pump, and the arteries are supposed to be flexible and allow more blood through when you need it and so forth. But if they're rigid, then that's why you get out of breath when you get old. I can't do it anymore because your arteries are not doing their youthful thing. Well, that's mainly, the two reasons, but the main thing is the lack of enough nitric oxide, which the body's ability to produce nitric oxide declines as you get older. And so it can be stimulated with this natural source, this arginine. And there's citrulline and a lot of other very great nutritional things that come out of these fruits and vegetables. So there's no mystery to it. In fact, there was a Nobel medical prize awarded on the technology behind this. This production of nitric oxide is very famous, the discovery of that process. So that's all it is. And since it causes the arteries to relax, it means increased, better blood flow throughout all of your organs, including your brain, including your heart, including your muscles, so you have stamina. Think about it. Increased blood flow means better oxygenation. That means better everything. So it is kind of, in a way, it's something that's good for everything because it increases circulation. Mm. And so it's not mysterious. It's no, it's no magic about it. Just understand the science, and that's how it works. So yeah, I put that in my Reality Zone online site because, boy, it did wonders for me. Mm-hmm. And anybody that's interested can just go to realityzone.com and look it up. I think we have 3 or 4 nutritional products there that I really recommend because I use them I don't put them in there because I just think we can sell them. It's because they made a difference in my life. And I feel I have an obligation because someone introduced me to these things. I should introduce others to it also. If John Hewlett hadn't told me about Cardio Miracle, I'd probably be dead by now. And so forth. We have another one. Well, you go take a look. There's one of the most interesting and controversial components in the site is something called Recharge. And all it is a telomerase stimulator. A telomerase is an enzyme that is produced by the body again. You're not giving it test tube stuff. You're stimulating the body to produce something that normally does. Telomerase is an enzyme that's produced in stem cells that causes the caps on the DNA to not shorten with age. It keeps those caps intact forever. It's like forever. That's why stem cells are considered to be the what do they call it? The ageless cell. They live for heart. They take a heart and put it in salt water, and it gets pumps for years and years and years and years and years and years and years. Wow. It's because the telomeres don't get shortened. Every time a cell is replaced, they say, the new one has a little shorter cap on the telomere end. And that means each time you replace every 7 years, you got a new cell to replace that one, some more, some less, 7, sometimes 12. But on average, 7 years, every 7 years, you have a whole new body. All cells have been replaced with new ones. But each time it's replaced, that telomere cap gets a little shorter. And finally, when it's gone, your DNA cannot replicate anymore. And that's called old age. And it's ultimately called dying. So here comes a substance that promises to stimulate the production of telomere caps on all cells, not just stem cells. I looked at the science on it, and it looked pretty reasonable. It looked like it was very well done. It's not test tube stuff. This comes from a substance. It comes from astragalus, an herb. It's highly refined. It's not the astragalus. You can go down to the store and buy astragalus herbs, but it's not. You need a room full of that stuff to make one little pill of this cycloestrogenol, it's called. So we've got stuff like that. I've got 4 or 5 products if you're interested in what I do. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to work for anybody, but they work for me. You can go to realityzone.com and just look it up in the health section, and you'll see what we have there.
It's pretty incredible, all the possibilities out there that people just don't spend a few moments just thinking about and looking into. Your health is so important for your own well-being, how you feel, your mood. I mean, not being depressed all the time because you feel terrible and just progressively getting worse feeling with age every single day. There are ways to get around that, and it's very inspiring to see.
Like what you see here, Wham? Don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so heavily demonetized and censored by YouTube, as these guys come in and flag all of our content as hate speech. The shadow banning is getting really bad, guys. Also, check our Bitcoin address right here on the screen or in the description below. We really appreciate it. And of course, check us out at the Red Pill Expo 2019. Of course, the great G. Edward Griffin and so many other incredible speakers will be there. Our link for that is below as well. And we cannot forget Mike Maloney's goldsilver.com, which you can also find in the description. One of the greatest market and monetary historians out there. We really encourage everyone to check that out. But until next time, this is Josh Richardson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.